We light this chalice for the light of hope, the fire of commitment, and the warmth of community.
You are a terribly real thing in a terribly false world. And that, I believe, is why you are in so much pain. Those words once spoken by artist and performer Emily Autumn, they remind me just how beautiful and how vulnerable authenticity is. All around us are half-truths and glaring falsehoods, performances of self carefully curated to skim but not fully arrive at the depths of things. And yet in this place, welcome. Welcome for the terribly real thing you are, the beautifully real thing you are. Welcome for the wonderfully strange person you are. Welcome to all the sadness and the gratitude, the doubt and the crankiness you bring into this space. Let us be terribly, beautifully, wonderfully real together in a world that is so often so false. For to do anything else is to align ourselves with that world's falsehood and not its faithfulness. Welcome to all of us. Bring who you are and come. Let us worship together.
Good morning. I'm Chris McCann, your religious educator for children. In these trying times, it was clear as a bell what we had to do. Wear a mask, stay home as much as possible, avoid large gatherings. Easy as pie. Soon enough, we'd be back in the saddle and living our normal lives until the cows came home. Now the writing is on the wall. We were dead wrong. If I could hazard a guess, I'd say lots of us are bored to tears and would give our right arms to go back to normal. We want to throw in the towel and jump ship, return to a time when the grass was greener. And here we are, trying to make lemonade of these lemons we've been handed, even when every day feels like one big cliche. It keeps being said that we're living in extraordinary times, and it's true. It is extraordinary. Ordinary to the point of exhaustion. What's to be done with these extraordinary times? Each morning when I make my bed, I listen to Sarah McLachlan sing the prayer of St. Francis. A routine chore has become a moment of reflection, of sanctuary, of beauty. I wonder where in your extraordinary day you may find something similar. What ordinary ho-hum moment can be elevated for the beauty in its downright ordinariness? We're about to hear a song that is a string of silly cliches with one ordinary, beautiful, and true thing happening in the middle. There's a big old goofy man dancing with a big old goofy girl. Please enjoy Jason Bird singing John Prine's Big Old Goofy World.
Up in the morning, work like a dog. It's better than sitting like a bump on a log. Mind your manners, be quiet as a mouse. Someday you want a home that's as big as a house. I know a fellow eats like a horse, knocks his old balls round the old golf course. You ought to see his wife, she's a cute little dish. She smokes like a chimney and drinks like a fish. There's a big old goofy man dancing with a big old goofy girl. Ooh, baby, it's a big old goofy world. Elvis had a woman with a head like a rock. I wish I had a woman that made my knees rock. She sing like an angel and eat like a bird. And if I wrote a song, she'd know every single word. There's a big old goofy man dancing with a big old goofy girl. Ooh, baby, it's a big old goofy world. Kiss a little baby, give the world a smile. And if you take an inch, give 'em back a mile. 'Cause if you lie like a rug and you don't give a damn, you're never gonna be as happy as a clam. So I'm sitting in a hotel trying to write a song. Head is just as empty as the day is long. Why, it's clear as a bell, I should have gone to school. Be wise as an owl instead of stubborn as a mule. There's a big old goofy man dancing with a big old goofy girl. Ooh, baby, it's a big old goofy world. Ooh, baby, it's a big old goofy world.
My friends, what do we say with authenticity about what's happening in our hearts, in our congregation, and in the world? We're stepping into this moment with everything we have, from Go Vote 2020 efforts taking place right now to a course we're offering in August for anybody who's feeling new or wanting to go deeper in the meaning of this Unitarian Universalist tradition we share, and an ongoing set of offerings from our Educating for Change pathway in our racial justice ministries that invite you to seek, to know, and to commit more deeply to the dismantling of racism and white supremacy culture in our hearts, in our community, and in this world. Your congregational leaders are hard at work, not just in these vital ministries, but in a collaborative discernment process about what our life together will look like in the fall and beyond. We hope that you'll sign up for our e-weekly newsletter and other information as we move forward together in this critical time. Next week, we'll be joining for worship not at 10 o'clock, but at 11 o'clock, when I'll be sharing the virtual chancel with my colleague, Reverend Abi Janamanchi, Senior Minister at Cedar Lane UU Congregation. Mark your calendars for 1 hour later and watch for the link next Saturday. This week, we know, as federal troops present themselves violently in American cities and the sun shines down on it all, we know that we think and we act. We wonder what it takes to speak true words out loud, to laugh and to find joy because it is a source of power for the resistance that may yet change things. We weep and we laugh, each in turn, doing what we can to name the joys and the sorrows of our lives. We continue to celebrate the beautiful and perfect, 100% extraordinary newest river roader Eli Quentin Martin Scott, born to his doting parents, Walt Scott and Crescent Martin, at 8:45 a.m. last Friday, the 17th of July. Mom and baby are doing fine. Welcome to the world, Eli. We hold in our hearts all those members of our families, extended families, and friend groups who are coping with COVID-related symptoms and risk factors. With more diagnoses of those near and dear to us, we continue to hold up the commitment that each and every person is important and not a one of us is expendable. We have had losses, great losses. As Maya Angelou wrote, when trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Likewise, she said, when great souls die, after a period peace blooms, our senses restored never to be the same whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. Last week, the world lost two great souls, John Lewis and Reverend C.T. Vivian, civil rights leaders who made distant hills shudder with the power of their prophetic witness. We can be and be better for the fact that they existed. We also hold the fact that while many area schools embrace online learning for the full fall semester, we offer our gratitude for all the teachers, our love and support for all the parents and caregivers, and our love and support for all those waiting for yet more clarity, more answers. We know that we can hold gratitude for the safety of our beloveds while simultaneously being overwhelmed by the immensity of the demand before us. And so we make room for both of those things in our hearts as we prepare for what will be a long road ahead. These days, there is no time for wrapping up holiness and hope in one place, 1 hour, one building, one nation. It is a time for letting the boundaries of what is sacred break loose a bit. And for our meditation this morning, I want to invite you to ask with me, what then is holy? And where do we encounter it? With images from my colleague, Reverend Andrea Perry Lerner, who finds the sacred wherever she goes. Take a deep breath and a good seat and ask, What is the vessel that holds the flame of hope? What is the chalice that is lit in your own life today? Does it live inside a sacred space? Does it make the space it's in feel sacred? Does the light of hope persist even in the cold, dark night? Does it meet you where you least expect it? Does it find you in the beautiful places, on the path outside your door? Does the flame of hope show up in ordinary places, in the hallways that lead to nowhere in particular, but take you exactly where you need to go? Does the chalice flame surprise you and bring you exactly what you need to meet the day wherever it is, however it is, with all the courage you can find? Does it warm you like a blanket, soft against the abrasions of this world? Does it bring you joy? The kind of joy that sustains and gives hope in the middle of the most normal day. Wherever you find it this week, may the chalice of hope and of community meet you exactly where you are. May there be peace and clarity in your days and some illumination today and every day. Not in the ways we might expect it, but in the ways in which that light is ready to be known in our lives. May you and I and all of us carry the light of hope within, and may we be abundantly blessed. May it be so, and amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion.
There was a point, maybe a couple of months ago, when I found myself, every time I typed or made a phone call or said anything out loud, I found myself repeating the same phrases over and over, pretty much exactly as Chris laid it out earlier in the Time for All Ages. It was like the world was providing such strangeness that there was literally nothing new to say. No hot take that wrapped it all up. And so I had, and honestly still have, all these defaults, these non-statement statements that held the space for such a time as this, in the midst of it all, so that I could say something while I waited for some deeper and more eloquent truth to emerge. What are the words that are coming out of my mouth? I wondered, are they true? And eventually, after agonizing about it for a bit, after wishing myself to be more eloquent and original and wise, eventually I came to realize that for the most part, the stock phrases I kept hearing from myself and from all of us together, for the most part, those stock phrases, while banal, while cliched perhaps, they were stock phrases for a reason. Because underneath all the unoriginality, they're mostly honest. We are stuck together in the midst of it all. What more can we say about the muddle? I am holding you in my heart, and I hope you are doing the same for me. And I know we are called to do brave, nay, almost impossible things for such a time as this. And sometimes I can even find more honest stock phrases than those. More honest stock phrases than the ones we started this pandemic with. The important thing, it now seems to me, is actually not being original or glittering or extra special or elegant in the ways that we communicate with each other, but being honest to the degree that it is possible, honest and vulnerable and very, very real in everything we say and communicate and do, even when the sheer reality of our situation seems almost too much to bear. In a cartoon he wrote for The New Yorker this month, L. Fink wrote a panel, which he called The New Stock Phrases, in which they reflected on how even our cliches are evolving. How are you was a question we used to ask. Today, we ask something subtly and yet powerfully different. Today, we ask, how are you holding up? In the before times, we responded with things like, fine, thanks. Now, even in business meetings among colleagues who knew virtually nothing of our hearts before, we are willing to admit that we are mostly just hanging in there. I hope you're well is a stock phrase that has evolved in email signups into the deeper and more heartfelt expression, I hope you and your family are in good health. And even our simple goodbyes have changed. When we disconnect on Zoom or drive away from the socially distanced gathering with our friends we have missed so deeply, we don't just shout bye-bye offhandedly. Instead, we say stay safe. And we mean it as a blessing and a benediction for all that might yet come. Even our cliches are evolving. To tap into the deeper truths we are facing together, we are adapting how we speak to each other to represent just what the world is throwing at us every day. As my colleague Sue Phillips once put it, language is the first distribution system for meaning making. And so we send out these messages to each other and to the world. We send out these messages to make meaning of what we lament and what we have lost and what we fear to lose. Collectively, we are creating new cliches for our own suffering. And in a way, it is lovely. and is so very much more true than all of our eloquence ever could be. We don't need any gurus or pastors or politicians to tell us that even casual interactions can be different these days than they used to be. We don't need glitter or rhetorical flourish to acknowledge that we have lost things, and we have lost people, and we have lost our certitude, and that the old ways of making meaning have got to change. We are figuring out new ways to communicate our meaning making together. We are figuring it out beyond the hashtags, one awkward and loving email sign off at a time. We really do hope each other's families stay healthy and safe. We really are making it well enough through each day. We really are holding each other in our hearts, and we really, really, really do yearn for each other to stay safe. We yearn for it every time we enter into and leave each other's presence. In this way, there is a sermon in every casual send-off. There is a homily in every rushed greeting. There is a proclamation of solidarity in every little nod of the head behind a mask that keeps us all safer. We are changing our language to make deeper meaning for each other, even when it seems like we're saying nothing at all. Because we need now more than ever, there's another cliche for you. We need now more than ever to feel the power of our connection. And what connects soul to soul, person to person, preacher to congregation is what has always connected us. What connects us is what is real. This has always been so. Even in spite of the fact that folks have stood up in front of crowds in order to be fake since pretty much forever. Our Unitarian forebear, Ralph Waldo Emerson himself, famously wrote the most scathing sermon review in the history of the United States after hearing a colleague of his preach one Sunday morning in Boston during the long, cold winter of 1838. Describing the experience of listening to that terrible, soulless sermon in which very little meaning was made, Emerson famously wrote the following: I heard once a preacher who was sorely tempted me to say I would go to church no more. Men go, thought I, where they are wont to go, else no soul had entered the temple that afternoon. A snowstorm was falling all around us. The snowstorm was real. The preacher merely spectral. And the eye felt the sad contrast in looking beyond him into the beautiful meteor of snow. He had lived in vain. He had not one word intimating he had ever laughed or wept, was married or in love, had been commended, chagrined, or cheated. If he had ever lived or acted, we were none the wiser for it. The capital secret of his profession, to convert life into truth, he had not learned. Not one fact in all his experience had he yet imported into his doctrine. This man had plowed and planted and talked and bought and sold. He had read books, he had eaten and drunken. His head aches, his heart throbs, he smiles and he suffers. Yet there was not a surmise, nor a hint in all the discourse that he had ever lived at all. It seemed strange that people should come to church then. It seemed as if their houses were very unentertaining, that they should prefer this thoughtless clamor. See what I mean? The most scathing sermon review ever written in American religious history, and yet how often in small and large ways do people in positions of power and authority stand before us and proclaim words that have no meaning, no depth, that give no evidence that they have ever lived, ever wept, ever cried, ever lost, ever yearned for something more. How often do people stand before us in public discourse and say words that do not hint at anything deeper, including the depths of their own souls? How often do leaders and politicians and pastors alike proclaim things that fundamentally have no meaning, no grounding in the lived experience of their days and of ours? And yet we are the meaning makers for each other. And we can choose to endow everything we say, everything we communicate, no matter how minor, how seemingly small, no matter how commonplace, how insignificant in our own minds, we can choose to endow every single thing we communicate with a depth of feeling and authenticity that the world sorely needs. We can choose, as Emerson said, to speak words that give evidence that we are alive. We can choose to speak even in offhand ways. In every single interaction we have with each other, we can choose to speak so that the person we are interacting with knows that we too weep, that we too worry, that we too work and fear and ache and hope. We can choose to present ourselves to the world as real-life human beings. And that is what we can expect of each other in this community of ours as well. Not a performance of eloquence, certainly not a performance of certitude, but a depth of vulnerability that lets each other in and that helps us all feel less alone. The poet David Whyte once wrote, "The more you're here and the more you're alive, the more you realize that you are a mortal human being and that you will pass from this place. And so while you are here, will you actually turn up? Will you become a full citizen of vulnerability, loss, and disappearance, which you have no choice about?" The invitation, I think, is just to show up, to really show up. Every time we speak or write or communicate or encounter each other or say goodbye, the invitation is just to show up as fully and as authentically as possible, to give evidence in our language and in our meaning making and in every single interaction that we are well and truly in this together. We can make do with nothing else than really showing up in a time such as this. And so, how are you holding up? I pray that you and your family are in good health. I myself am hanging in there. Thank you. Be well. Be safe and be well in the midst of it all together. I miss you, and I love the world, and each and every one of you within it. And so, in the honest and unoriginal words you have heard 100 times already, may the truth that makes us free, the love that casts out fear, and the hope that never dies guide us and those we love and those we do not love forward together till the day spring breaks and the shadows flee away. Amen.